So hello and welcome everyone joining us on Zoom as well as Facebook Live. You've made it to Easy Steps Toward Aging Well in Community with our special guest, Margaret Critchlow. In case we haven't met, my name is Lauren and I'm your host for this session. So if you run into any tech issues or otherwise need assistance, please feel free to send me a private message in the chat and I will be more than happy to assist you. All right, now I'd like to fill you in on a course that we have coming up. This is the URL here, but I will put it in the chat box for you here in a bit. So starting on June 23rd, we'll be hanging out with Margaret again for her Exploring Community for Aging Well course. And during this 10-hour course, Margaret will help you prepare for getting older. You'll learn about downsizing living spaces and stuff, while highlighting the importance of more social connection without compromising your personal privacy. And I want to note that we do offer sliding scale pricing that starts at $99 to fit your budget. And we do hope to see all of you there. Okay, now I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Margaret Critchlow. Margaret taught anthropology at York University in Toronto, Canada for 25 years before retiring to Vancouver Island. She loved learning from villagers in the South Pacific islands of Vanuatu. Darn it, I was practicing, hoping to get that right. Vanuatu, and from residents of Canadian housing co-ops. She has written or co-authored more than 50 academic articles and 7 books. Margaret was a founding member of the first senior co-housing community in Western Canada, Harborside Co-housing, where she has lived with her husband since it opened in January of 2016. She enjoys sharing her enthusiasm for co-housing with people of all ages, independently, and as a community building facilitator with co-housing development consulting. Her courses, Aging Well in Community and Is Co-housing for You, have supported people to better understand what they are getting into when they join a co-housing community. All right, and with that, I am going to hand the microphone over to Margaret. Thank you so much for joining us again today, Margaret, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. It's great to be back with you all and to have an imaginary audience out there. I can't see you all, but I look forward to seeing some faces when we get, when we get to the part of the Q&A. And so I would encourage you to if you're comfortable doing so, to put your names in chat and where you're calling in from. Just to, first name is great, but just to have a sense of where people are coming from. And I think that Lauren's introduction has really said everything that I need to say about who I am. But of course, I can't resist the impulse to add a little bit more. And I would like to just say that I'm speaking to you today from Souk, British Columbia, where I live, as Lauren said, in Harborside Co-housing, which was the first senior-oriented co-housing in Western Canada. I'm proud to be a resident of Souk, which is a community very closely connected to the local First Nation, the Sauk. It's a variant of the same word, means a stickleback fish. The Sauk Nation has taught me a great deal, and I continue to learn from people here about, among other things, growing older in community. There's a lot of elder wisdom in this town and in my community, and I'm honored to be touching into that a little bit and to be able to share with you a little bit of what I'm learning living here. So I'm very grateful for that, and I want to acknowledge that presence here. I think I'll focus at this point on sharing my screen with you and sharing slides. Here we go. Share. I'm thinking of this course as having something to do with the rings of a tree like this. And that those of us who are aging in place in a way are benefiting from all the nurturance that this tree has to offer and all the many generations of sustenance that we have gathered from those who've gone before us and that we hope to share with those who come after. One way to do that is to live in community, and I don't know how many of you at present are living in community. The course is oriented most toward people who are new to community or are not living yet in community, but are curious about it. So that's how I've oriented this the session today, to give you a sense of that. Even if you're just beginning to think, oh, maybe I wonder if I would want to grow older in community. And some of the questions I asked myself when I stepped onto this path is, did I already have a strong circle of support, a circle of friends upon whom I could call? And I think it's an important question for each of us to ask ourselves, and it changes, because our friends, they change, they move, they grow older, they die, we grow closer, we grow more distant. So asking oneself on an ongoing basis, who is in my strong support circle? That's something we'll have a chance to do during the upcoming course, and it's something I think that serves us well. So maybe you have a strong circle, maybe you don't. Maybe that's one reason you're really drawn to community living, is you don't have a strong circle of support and you know it. Maybe you like the idea of community, but you also want privacy. And one thing that I can pretty well, I think you can guarantee this about living the way that we live at Harborside in a co-housing community, is that you can have all the privacy you want and all the community you want as well. It's up to you to maintain a good boundary between those two, but both are entirely possible. So maybe you like the idea of community, but you also want privacy, and we can talk about how to make that happen. If you already live in an attentional community, maybe it's well suited to aging, maybe it's not. And those are, maybe you want to think about changing where you live to another community. But as I say, this is mainly oriented to those who are thinking maybe they kind of or totally want community, anywhere in that range. And maybe something else that we to introduce into the mix is, maybe you live in a great house for aging, but you're lacking social connection. Or maybe you live in a house that is great for living in right now, but is not going to be, you think, good for aging. Stairs are often what come up for people. And stairs, like what looks like a very steep staircase behind Lauren in her picture, are great until they're not. So is your house well suited to aging? And is it a house that gives you easy connection to other people? So these are part of the wonderings with which I began thinking about how to talk to you all today. The outcomes of today will be, I don't know if I can manage this technically speaking, Lauren. I don't think I can. I will tell you what they are, is to understand what difference community can make to aging well, to explore how you can plan for social connection in your later years and why that's important, and find out what's included in the upcoming 5-session course, Exploring Ways to Age Well in Community. So what choices do you have? You have a summer here, at least for most of us, and we may have somebody joining from down under today. I don't know. There's often somebody from New Zealand or Australia for whom it's some other day and some entirely other time zone. I'm in the Pacific zone of North America, in Canada right now. But in any case, it's summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, and I think it's a great time to explore your future, my future, thinking about like sort of a summer reading program or a summer path, if you want, a hike into the woods to consider what would be aging well from your point of view. Oh, that's where I need to catch up with myself. If you are feeling alone, then this is a really good time to look at whether that works for you, the extent to which it works for you, and what resources you want to put in place if you're on this aging path by yourself. The choices that you make can benefit from what choices other people have made, and your choice about how connected to be with others will directly impact your mental and physical health. And so planning it's hard, it's always hard. And it's often easier to do the planning than actually enact the plan, which is a whole nother part of it. But this is an opportunity, I think, for all of us. I'm doing a lot of work around aging and dying right now. On a personal front, I've been connected with a close friend whose partner has died, and I've learned so much going through that. I have friends here at Harborside who are having medical issues, and we support each other in whatever it is that's up ahead for us. So there are lots of resources that I'm learning as I go through this, and that I think enrich my ability to lead a class on this. What have you learned from elders? I have done this teaser with a large section in it on what I learned from elders in Vanuatu, and I've taken that out here because I want to focus on the North American situation, unless I have people. I think I have people from Europe and other places, but not the kind of situation you might imagine an anthropologist living in Vanuatu and being part of. And yet much of the elder wisdom that I've learned, along with what I've learned in Suk with the Sauk Nation, what I've learned from fellow community members, a lot of what I did learn in Vanuatu. And that has to do with how much the wisdom of elders is valued in a simpler society than our own. How integral older people are to societies like that. I lived in a village setting in Vanuatu, a village of maybe 100 people, and all the old people continued to live there. There were no nursing homes, there were no retirement facilities, there were no orphanages. And so people just looked after each other. Sometimes they grumbled about it, but they looked after each other. And so being part of a multi-generational society is important to me. I don't necessarily require that in my housing arrangement, but I do love it in my neighborhood, and value the connections with young people that we have. Just yesterday, the one household was having a barbecue of 3 generations of their family, and the neighbor kids were playing street hockey, because in Canada we play that year round. And so that we are still in a multi-generational situation, even though most of all of our members are older, and we could have people of any age in our community. There's no age restriction, but even though our focus is on aging in place, there's a multi-generational culture here too. I appreciate how much culture is contained in elder wisdom, stories, joking, passing on history, and how elders lead, and they lead in lots of different situations, even in this little community, where the people who are on the boards of everything, the people who are volunteering, are the people with the time, and they're generally the people who are retired, and they are listened to, and people benefit from their experience. And so elder wisdom works its way throughout the society, and can be very funny. And so the other aspect I want to mention is the role that elders played in the village in Vanuatu, and also here at Harborside, in cooking, looking after each other, preparing food for each other, in taking care of animals and taking care of gardens. Oh boy, lots and lots of gardens. So old people can be very useful, and not taking away the usefulness of people and the sense of purpose, I think is a very important part of aging well. So I'll have more to say about that in a minute. The social connection is so well documented to be absolutely crucial to aging successfully. By successfully, I mean, because any of us get out of here alive. Successfully means to me that you're aging with a sense of purpose, a sense of fulfillment, enough activity in your day to be to be meaningful, not so much that it's stressful, kind of a perfect little scenario if you can achieve that. It's absolutely crucial that there be social connection in that, because social isolation has been proven to be as big a health risk, a mortality risk, in fact, as smoking. So social isolation can kill you. And you probably know of people who have experienced this, maybe with the death of a spouse and suddenly they're alone, or they are used to living alone, they're doing fine, but suddenly they can't drive anymore. And in just an instant, their world shrinks, and the only people they're in contact with are caregivers who maybe come in, bring a meal, look after their medical needs, and go. So that's not what I would recommend for any of us. Social connection is what we're looking for. So how do you imagine your life flowing on from here? I don't know how old you are, hopefully you do, and you can plan it from here. And you might imagine it as a river flowing. There's a poem that I like, this is all there is to it. I would love to live like a river flows, carried by the surprise of its own unfolding. It's a lovely Irish former monk, John O'Donoghue, who's written a number of great books. And this link will be in your slide deck, and it's in the recording, and you can check it out on your own. There's something lovely about imagining your life as a river, and you could draw it. I would encourage you, those of you who are attracted to this exercise, to do this before the course starts, which is to draw your life to the present point as a river, and then to draw what you imagine flowing on from this point. You could also write it as a little essay, or write a poem or whatever, but to imagine yourself in the river of life and how it's been to this point, where it's been broad and meandering, where it's been a bit of a whirlpool ride, where you've gone over the falls, and so on. It's a nice analogy with which one can think through the hard parts as well as the pleasant parts of life. And the poem is a useful reminder, I think, that we are none of us ultimately in control. We have no idea what's up ahead for us. We can imagine the river of our life, but when it goes around the bend, we are not going to see that coming. So being prepared for the unexpected, I think, is always, it's why I plan. I used to teach students how to design research proposals and how to conduct fieldwork in remote parts of the world as anthropologists. And the planning exercise was mostly to assure them that when the plan hit the rocks or they went over the waterfall, that they could plan again and be resilient and shake off the water and carry on. So I'm not suggesting that whatever plan I support you to create in a workshop or course is going to be the last plan you make. It's just a way of thinking through what the possibilities are and of planning for how you will respond when that plan gets thrown out the window. Because that's what life is like for all of us. Just when you think you got it figured out, something happens, right? Okay. We're not in control, but we can make choices. And so my hope is to support you to make choices, to support myself to continue to make pretty good choices, to forgive ourselves when we make mistakes, and just do what we can to live the fullest lives that we can live. At least that is my commitment. Yours may be quite different, but I encourage you to examine what it is. And to me, in the face of more and more illness and death, mine is to live as fully with as much fun and humor as possible, and as much meaning and as much curiosity as I can find and draw into my life, and draw in people who bring those things with them. So think about, what are the qualities in the people in your lives that you value, that you want more of? And we'll do things in the course as well to look at what stuff you want more of and so on. But think about the qualities in the people who you're close with that you want more of. So the poem is a useful reminder that we're not in control, and we might want to make some choices. But the poem also, to me, is a reminder that maybe we don't want to go with the flow all the time. That maybe we'd rather have some choices and be able to choose a path to walk, like this woman, I'm thinking it's a woman in the picture, person in the picture is doing. So you could have a backpack full of options so you can make choices about how to age well. And that's what I see us co-creating, is your own backpack, because each will be different. And you have a chance to interact with each other in the actual course, although not in this teaser today, to get to know each other and explore the options that are important to other people as well as to yourself. And that may give you more ideas about what it is that you want more of, what it is that you want less of, what it is that you want in your backpack, and what you can take out because it's very heavy. So learning to pack for the journey ahead, a journey in which you probably need less stuff than you think, like probably every trip you've ever taken, where you think you need everything, but you really can get by with just a few great items. So what would you put in the backpack for that? Okay. I don't know whether we can stop here for questions, Lauren, or is that possible? And just pull out and see if there are any. I'm about almost halfway, more than halfway through here, but just to see if there's anything else that people would like to know before I carry on.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. We do have a question from Sabine. My apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name. The question is, what if your partner does not want to invest in social connection?
That's a great question, Sabine. It's really common. One of the syndromes that we identify in co-housing is the reluctant spouse, which is it's not always the guy, it's the partner who just is really happy in their cocoon, and they really are very introverted maybe, or at least very private person, and they're not interested in community. And what is the delightful answer to your question, Sabine, is it works really well in community if one person doesn't want community and the other one does. So they can, because you have all the privacy that you can ask for if it's this kind of community. And I'm living in a particular kind called co-housing, and there are lots and lots of kinds of community. So you want to find one in which it's fine to have as much private time as you want for both of you in a couple relationship, where if there's a lot of work to be done, in the community, the other person can do it, and you can stay inside and write a novel, or whatever, or practice your meditation, or whatever it is that you like to do. So picking the right community is crucial, and in the right community, you can both have what you want. And I think it's extremely important too, if you are living as a couple, that the partner who thinks they don't need social connection recognizes that somebody in the household needs to be making those social connections, because the household as a whole needs the support of other people. It needs contact. The household needs connection. It's a health issue. That one person can do that work for the two, or the three if there are more of you than two in a household. I think any combination is possible, but somebody from the household connecting to the larger world in some way is really important. And you want to think about what happens if, it's a tough question, but one of those partners is going to go first, and then is it going to work for the other person? You have to think about it. You may not have the answer to that at this point, but having a housing situation that will continue to work for both partners that's golden if you can do it. Otherwise, you may just have to change your situation. So thanks, Lauren and Sabine.
Yeah, really appreciate that response, Margaret. Thank you. We have another question here. Sabine says thank you. We have another question here. This one's from Cyrus or Cyrus. Again, my apologies if I'm butchering your name here. But Cyrus says, I'm here for two reasons. One is to learn more about my mother's emotional well-being. The second is to learn what can I, as a real estate broker, can do to help more elderly folks who are looking for community. I'm new to this world, so if someone isn't familiar with the intentional community, what would you recommend as first few steps, excuse me, for potential clients who could benefit from this?
So Cyrus, another couple of good questions in there. I think it's important to be looking for your aging mother. I think it's also important, if you're looking for living in an intentional community, for your aging mother to be part of that quest. The people who do well in community are often the people who do not. This may seem a bit harsh. I really appreciate your caring for your mother and trying to find the best place for her. But the people who do well in intentional community are often not the people who want their kids to find a home for them. And they actually really value having control over that choice. And so with my community, we encourage people to come for a tour. A lot of intentional communities will welcome visitors, and you can find out by looking at the directory of intentional communities on the foundation's website and visit. I think visiting is it's what we do when we pick out a school for our kids, right? Visit, do the tour, find out, because you'll get a good sense, your mother will get a good sense too. And as a realtor, as soon as people walk in the door, that whether they like this place or they don't. It's a very quick felt response. So visiting in person is great, and barring another pandemic, that should serve you well. The other thing is to just learn about the community itself, learn what works there, what doesn't work there. Is it an agricultural community? Will they allow pets? That sort of thing. And what kind of support they provide for people to age in community. So many intentional communities, most are not set up for end-of-life care. Many of them provide it because people get old and they just die. And the people rise to the occasion and do a great job. But providing anything like even assisted living, much less extended care, is not something that you can expect in an intentional community. So finding out what's available, what other resources are in the community at large, whether families are expected to support their elders who are in the community or not, what the financial arrangements are. And so that's, if you're looking at it, and meet the people. Be sure you get a chance to drop in on a coffee or a meal. Don't just go with one tour leader who you might or might not like. Because if you like them a lot, the rest of the community may not be like them, and vice versa. For you as a realtor, we at Harborside anyway, educate our realtors so that, and they give us a finder's fee kind of arrangement, and we send people their way, because we really value realtors who understand our community and how it works and what is a good fit for us. We can't really do more than hope that we get a good fit, because we have a strata model here in BC, which is the same as a condominium model for many parts of the world. And people can buy whatever, the willing buyer meets the willing seller, they've got a deal. So that said, I think that a realtor educating themselves about intentional community living for older people, which is certainly a side benefit, I think, of this course, it would be very valuable to you. It has been we have half a dozen realtors who I've been dealing with here. They only do a buying or a selling part of a sale every few years, but it's enough to keep them connected to what this community is like, how it's the same as other condominiums, how it's different. And we have 2 co-housing communities in our town, so it's kept them busy enough. along with the rest of the booming real estate market. Okay, guess I'll jump back into slides now if that works for you, Lauren.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you. The third step is to consider making an actual plan for aging well in community. And the nuts and bolts of that will be what we look at during the actual course. The reason you need a plan is, as I've said, so lack of social connection is a killer. Nearly, according to some study by the National Academy of Science, nearly a quarter of adults aged 65 and older are socially isolated by their own standards and by the standards of the medical profession. So if 1 in 4 people over 65 is socially isolated, we've got a problem. Things that keep people isolated from each other are things like long-term illness and disability and transportation. Not being in the workplace is a big loss for a lot of older people. All of those can increase social isolation and loneliness. So having a plan, and people often ask, so when should I start to plan for aging in place? I think 50 is good. Now, that is the age of my oldest child at this point. But it is a good time to start, because that's when you begin to think, well, how much longer do I want to work at this job? And then what do I want to do? And so having a flexible plan that begins about then. It also is usually confronted in our society around, oh, yikes, can I afford to retire? What am I going to live on financially? But I got to say, we pay much more attention in the conventional world to having enough money to live on than we do to having enough social capital to live on. And I think that and having enough meaning in our lives to live on, making a difference for anybody to live on. Anyway, that's my particular orientation. Starting the plan is going to, I think, equip you to do well. Your plan can help to, you can aim through your plan to reduce your social isolation, to increase your feeling of being connected to other people, which comes with its own challenges. So you'll have more conflict possibly because you're more interacting with people. You're sharing space in a different kind of way. If you're in an intentional community, you're sharing common space. You're not in, at least in most communities, you're not sharing private. You still have some private space, but you are sharing common space. So you will feel increasingly connected. You can invite in a lot more fun. There's just a lot more spontaneous social happenings. It's silly things that just happen, and everybody gets drawn in, or a lot of people get drawn into it. We have spontaneous barbecues all the time. We have spontaneous gardening events. We have spontaneous encounters with the deer, who are everywhere here. It invites in more fun. It can deepen relationships. There's a huge opportunity when living in community and planning to grow old together. Huge opportunity to deepen your friendships, to drop deep into a kind of connection that for most of us has been really rare. It's almost like the kind of close friends I made in childhood. Like, we just did everything together. And we got in fights, but we also just cared so deeply about each other and had so much fun. And there's that opportunity when you're not working, and although some of us are, but mostly you have more time than you did when you were 30. And the chance and the life experience, I guess, to fuel a strong friendship, to talk about what really matters to you, which is something that I don't know about you, but as an adolescent, I did a lot of that. How are we going to change the world, right? And we still can, and I'm still having those conversations, and they've gotten deeper at living together with other people. Your plan for aging well can also probably save you money. There are lots of economies of scale about living in aging in community. Fewer cars that need to be maintained, bulk buying of groceries, giving each other rides here and there. What else could I think of? We got a deal with a cable TV supplier, that sort of thing. There are various bulk acquisitions that can help you. And maybe you don't need to have everything. So in our common store of stuff inventory, we have a lot of things like a fruit dryer, a bunch of slow cookers, even little space heaters that we don't all have to have one. We borrow, and really just having one for the community of some things like a lawnmower is enough. So there are savings, and communities, this has been documented, do save people money. Living in communities saves people money, just for that reason, because people are more environmental in the way that they use and reuse stuff, and the way that they share stuff is also financially advantageous. And your plan can also support you to be part of building a community. It can be an intentional community that you join or you help to start, or it can be a naturally occurring community. And these naturally occurring retirement communities are a thing right now. They're called NORCs, N-O-R-C, I guess, N-O-R-R-C, naturally occurring retirement communities. You got it, N-O-R-C. They can be, if you live in a cul-de-sac, for example, that's a great place where this happens. And you're in your family home, there are 3 other households in their family homes. Maybe you all had kids, maybe some of them are still in high school, maybe the rest are all grown up and gone. And you've probably developed some connection through your kids over the years. And you can maintain that connection as adult or retiree residents of that community, and you can really support each other. There are tons of examples. Probably many of you could give us examples of naturally occurring retirement communities that you're familiar with, that your family have created, or that you know about. And they're great. They're best if they're not too isolated, where if somebody needs help, it can be brought in, or where you can walk to a store. So looking at how you can build community where you are, or if you need to shift your living arrangement, where you would want to go and when you would want to do it. And again, I think, 50 is a great time to think about it. I actually moved to British Columbia when I was in my 50s. And it was partly for these reasons. It was, I kind of wanted a new life. And I wanted to be able to continue to teach part-time, and I could do that. I wanted to be near my children, but not on top of them. They were grown at that point, about to have kids. And so I looked at where did I want, and I wanted, this is Canada, right? I wanted a place without so much winter. And so the West Coast called me, and yeah, I've created an entirely new life for myself out here in community with others. So you don't want to leave that very late. And one of the challenges that we have in the communities movement with regard to elders is getting them off their posteriors to deal with a change of community, to actually make a move and not to leave it too late. And in creating the community I live in, there were so many people who said, yeah, but I'm only in my 50s, I'm not ready yet. That would be great for my mom, or great maybe for me someday, but not right now, because I'm fine where I am, right? So we have this analogy with the boiling frog, where you turn the heat up slowly, and the frog needs to jump out sooner than it tends to. So building community is easiest done when you live in a community, or you're creating a community in a conventional neighborhood. It's harder to do after you're, say, 65, or really hard to do after you're, say, 75. And when you get to be 80, people just don't even want to think about a move. And that's often when they get moved into the home. And that's not a bad thing. It's something that's a very necessary thing. But our hope is that living in community will keep us out of the home for longer, maybe forever. and it's partly because of the kinds of decisions that we have to be involved in, the kind of conflict resolution that we have to deal with. There's a lot that is for us to figure out living in community and with each other's support. So it's not always easy, but it's good. And I think it's good for us. These are some of the benefits that are easy to identify about living in community. It's just like if you went to university with a whole cadre of people, there's that whole sense of we're in this together at the same stage of our lives is very mutually supportive. So sharing the work, the worries, the joys of aging in place, the resources, the knowledge, which is not in this slide, but should be, is important as well. Enjoying the economies of scale that I mentioned, providing and receiving neighborly mutual support. I can't overestimate that we all, I think, I shouldn't say we all, many of us like to help other people. They're like, I like to bring a plate of food to a neighbor who's got COVID yet again. It tore through our place a couple of weeks ago. I dodged it, but my husband was down with it. So being able to give neighborly mutual support is tremendous, but it's also great to learn how to receive it. And it's hard to ask for it. And we are learning on that path a lot. And there's a lot that is teachable about that, and that you can fold into your plan for what we call community care or co-care, to provide neighborly mutual support and to receive it. And then to make the benefit of community is you can actually make a contribution to the world, whatever that may look like. It may be, growing sunflower seeds for the local farmers market and the whole community. That's what we do. And that's a huge gift. Or it may be offering something that's like written, books and that sort of thing to make the world a better place. So whatever it is, community can support you to contribute to making the world better, even at this late stage in our attempts to keep this planet healthy. There's so much that can be done, and there's such a wonderful platform from which to do it. So yeah, take the courageous step of taking a course on this. And I want to give you a link to the course itself and just run through this course description and syllabus. So we'll be meeting once a week, and it's going to be from the 23rd of June, and I'm sharing that, and I'm going to not do that. And it's going to be an interactive class. This is a webinar format. My classroom is very interactive. You don't have to speak in it. You can, in fact, mute yourself and turn off your screen if you want to, but I encourage you, and we'll try to draw you into participation. I think we learn best from each other, and I learned a lot. I've done this particular course once before. I have taught other courses for more often than I care to mention. But this particular course, the first time I taught it, which was just a few months ago, I learned so much from the participants, the things they suggested adding, the things they suggested doing differently, in the evaluation for the course at the end, but also during the classes. Somebody would say, oh, I know, that's a little off-putting. Let's try it this other way. Or how do you know about this resource? So it will be very interactive. You will get to meet each other and learn from each other as well as from your interactions with me. The first class is about totally reframing your expectations about the realities of aging, and building on what I said about how people say they're not ready yet. Getting out of denial is the most important part. And I love it when somebody says at the end of the course, I came in here thinking that in another 10 years, I'd start to plan for this, and I was just getting ahead of the game. I'm going to do it now. Do it now. It's so important. And so many of the people who chose not to move in with us to our intentional community for aging in place are now so isolated, and quite a lot of them aren't with us anymore because they just weren't ready. And there's some of them are also still not ready. So the second class will focus on what you want more of and what you want less of. And this is a material class. It's what stuff. Think about how you live now, how big your home is, or how tiny it is, because I know some of you are already in tiny, and why you would downsize and how you would do it if that's what you need to do. I'm now at the point of actually adding a few things to our home. I just do really need one more big saucepan. But where to put it? And then how more social capital can support aging well, and how to build it for aging in place. That social capital, I mean, is different to the retirement capital that you need to live on financially. It's the investment in relationships. I helped you. I've been your friend for so many years, and you care about me, so you're going to help me out now. And we all have social capital, and we invest it in other people, and then we draw it back sometimes, and sometimes we're in deficit positions, and that's fine. If I don't want to, that's the best place to be. Where you owe where you owe everybody is the best place to be. That class will also talk about the importance of social connection again, and the links between community and quality of life. And then the middle class is a big look at what's available, what's out there in the housing landscape, what intentional communities you might want to join, how to find them, what the pros and cons are, what the non-intentional community alternatives are as well, because they're important to consider too. Whether or not to consider starting your own, and how and when to choose your housing options. We're going to focus a bit more this time around on choosing intentional communities and how you would do that, and what the constraints are, as well as the incentives that you need to be aware of for picking one that suits you well. So that's the class that will do that. Then there's a fourth class, which is going to be lessons from mainly the place that I live, what we've learned in 8 years of living here. And we've had 2 deaths, neither on the property. And we've had quite a lot of aging challenges recently that are ongoing on a daily basis. So, and how we've dealt with those, I think there are some lessons in there for everybody. The final class is over to you, really, in which you can identify whether aging in community is what you want. I will ask you to, I think it's helpful to have to hear yourself say whether it is or isn't and what that's like. If you're totally shy of doing that, we'll find another way. We'll look at the balance between privacy and community, and how to know what you want. Because I don't know, many of us are not, we think we want one thing, but we actually thrive on something slightly different. So knowing what you want, and then how to achieve that balance, and then how to be resilient when, as I said earlier, something knocks your plan for a loop, and you have to start all over again. So how to be resilient when the unexpected happens. With old aging, it's usually a health crisis, but not always. Or an accident, but not always. And then committing to your plan and putting it into action so that you know what next steps you're going to take when you leave here, when you leave the course, right? So it's a 10 in the morning, I think, class. So it's only, or 9 o'clock if you're in Mountain Time, which I will be for a couple of the classes. And on the East Coast of North America, it's, I don't know, something like 7 in the morning, whatever it is. I guess it's not. Is it not? Maybe it is 7 in the morning. Anyway, you figure it out. There's a very handy and very accurate device on the Foundation for Intentional Community course website that tells you what time it is in your area. My point, if I had one, is that it's summer, the days start early. Maybe you can drag yourself to a class in your pajamas at Zoom before your day really begins. And so that's my invitation to you. I'd love to see as many people in that class as we can handle. I think we had maybe 25, 30 last time, and it was great. And if you miss one, no big deal, because there's a recording. And sometimes that's just going to happen, and you can watch the recording, and you can always get in touch with me independently of if you have questions. There will be a way to contact me, and I can give you some personal attention. I'm going to stop there, Lauren, and if there are any remaining questions, we'll wrap up with those.
Yeah, thank you so much, Margaret. And I'm really looking forward to, I'll be hosting Be With You Again in that course. And I learn something new every time that I'm with you, and you're just so warm and careful, and you're guiding us through all of this. That just makes it less scary to talk about. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, it does. Oh yeah, I've got all these resources now like this. It's a fun card game. Really is.
Well, yes, and that's another thing I wanted to mention is Margaret will be providing a lot of resources for you all in the course. So she'll set everybody up. All right, so actually there are a couple questions here that I'd like to toss at you, Margaret. The first one is from, I'm so terrible with names today, Ante, I believe. And the question is, while preparing for aging in community, what are, in your view, the key competencies or practices to learn?
Good question. Is it maybe Antya? The key practices to learn, key questions to prepare to age in community. I think the simplest and most fundamental one is, what do I want? And you may be in a partnership, right? And it's still important to know, what do I want? And to then ask yourself, how will that serve me to age in connection with other people? Because I really encourage you to take that as just a truth, that I know that people love to go out into the mountains, and I watched a movie recently called Alone, was it? I can't remember now, where a woman, she's in grieving, and she goes up into the mountains of Oregon, and probably close to where Lauren is, and decides she's going to live off the grid. And maybe it's called Live or Live. Anyway, she doesn't know what she's doing, of course. And so, all sorts of things go wrong. But that impulse to, I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to live in a bush, and in the bush where nobody can get to me and I don't need people, it's not going to serve you for aging well. Trust me. So that question of, what do I want? And then maybe, what do I need? Usually we would ask those questions the other way around. What do I need? And then, what do I want? Needs coming first. But in this case, I would encourage you to ask, what do I want? And then, what do I need? And how do I stay connected? It's important to look at your financial picture, of course. It's important to look at any considerations around your family, like what I need or what I want. What I need might be, I've got to stay closer to my elder mother, because she needs me. But what I want might actually be just be someplace else. And maybe you have to foresee making a deal with yourself, which is like, for the next 5 years, I will be here, and then then this is what I want. But be careful about those deals. And maybe there's a way to involve your aging mother in your new community. I've seen that happen. We have 3 generations living. We have few people in their 90s, their children, and then their children, all very closely connected to our community. They don't all live here. The youngest ones don't live here, but it's a place where everybody can gather. So what do you want? And then looking honestly at your finances and your health situation. It's really hard to join an intentional community, I think, it's fair to say, of any kind, if you have really serious health issues that need a lot of community support. and in which you cannot really contribute to the community, it doesn't set you up to make friends. So if you're in that situation, then you might want to look at another kind of retirement community, and there's some really good ones out there. I think you need to have a bit more money often for that. But even so, there are some alternatives that are more affordable, often church related, that provide a lovely quality of life. So I would say, what do you want? What do you need? And be honest with yourself about what you can do. Oh, it is Antja, I would say, from France. Thank you.
Great. Yep. Okay. Thank you for that, Margaret, and thank you for that question as well. I've got another question I'm trying to find here in the chat. Here we go. This one's from Sabine. How much commitment is expected in a community? For example, if a couple sees a community as anchor point, but wants to travel as long as they can.
Yeah, that's a question to ask each community, because the answer will vary. And it will vary depending on the kind of community it is. If it's an agricultural community, the whole place may disappear in the winter. I don't know. But in the summer, you're not around to help, that you would be missed. Communities often have agreements about how much participation they expect or require. So knowing the community is, I think, the key to success there. Some retirement communities are usually very fine with people being away for 6 months of the year. We're less fine with that. We maybe thought we were more comfortable with it than we are, because we're finding that if a household's not here for 6 months of the year, they're missed. Their contribution is missed, and the community needs regular contributors. We have regular work bees, we have regular maintenance, we have ongoing legal finance team responsibilities. So being able to do your share, whether or not there's a rule about it, there will be a culture about it, there will be an ethos about it. And if you want to do the right thing, then that's what you'll need to do. So thank you. I think we're out of time.
Yeah, wow, right on time. Well, thank you so much, Margaret, for this wonderful presentation and letting us pick your brain with these questions. And thank you, everyone, for joining and engaging with us. We hope that this was valuable for you. And if we don't see you in the course, which I hope we do, I do hope that we can connect with you in Zoomland again soon. So thank you so much again, everyone, and please enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.